Can you give me a confirmation quickly if you're able to see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
we're able
Vivek,
to
the
view.
screen is visible.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
The
okay, great.
thumbs
Thank you.
up was regarding those only.
Okay, okay. Sorry, I couldn't see read the messages.
No
So, anyways,
problem
yeah.
at all. Please go ahead, Vivek.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, in the previous session, we talked about recruitment and hiring, and we looked at, what are the different aspects of recruitment and hiring. So this is mainly a session which is in continuation with the last topic. Okay. And now we are going to talk about how to look into the job requirements and specifications. Okay. So the agenda of the topic, sorry, today's session would be in this particular order. So we will first start with understanding job requirements, like what exactly job requirements mean and how we go about it. Then we'll talk about different benefits and importance for the job requirements. Then we'll also look at the differences and between the job requirements and job specifications. Okay. So many times when you are publishing a job post, you might have to include a lot of other things, right? So what are the things, and how it should be grouped together when forming such kind of job posts. So that is very important. So benefits of job specifications. And then we'll also talk about some of the primary objectives and secondary objectives of, job specifications. And we will look at some of the case studies. I'll give you some examples. I will have, I'll give you a particular role for which we will do some exercise together. Okay. So that you also know that, what kind of thought process goes into building a job requirement or specification. Okay. Right. So let's try to understand what exactly job requirements are. Okay. So if you read this definition, it says job requirements are qualifications and skills necessary for a certain position, right? So let's say if you have to hire a sales manager, okay, so you might be looking at certain qualifications. Let's say you want someone who is a graduate. Maybe you need someone who has good spoken power, right? Who can talk confidently in different languages, let's say Hindi, English, or maybe there's a regional language for which you need this guy, right? And maybe you need someone who is very much adept with, let's say, PowerPoint presentations, Word documents, making proposals, and so many things like that. So these are nothing but these are all the qualifications and the skills required for the position of a sales manager. Okay, right? So likewise, we need to identify certain requirements that are very important for that particular job position. So that's what we call as job requirements. Okay. Now, normally when you frame a job requirement, it has to be very, very specific, right? So you cannot be very subjective and saying, okay, I want something like I just want someone with good skills in sales and all, right? So you have to be very, very specific, saying, okay, maybe this person should have very good persuasion skills. Maybe he's very good at negotiation and bargaining. He has very good presentation skills, right? So these are like very, very specific things. Now, what we normally do is when we create these kind of job requirements, we try to write them in the form of a list. Now, why a list? Mostly, a list would have lots of bullet points, right? So let's say there are 10 different, maybe if I talk about the qualifications, okay. So there are 10 different things that could be part of the qualification. So maybe one could be that person should be graduate in a certain subject, right? Then it could be like this person already has a certain number of years of experience in the sales domain. Maybe he should be very good with these languages, right? So all those qualifications are there. And then, of course, the exact skills like negotiation, presentation skills and all. Okay. Now, when you create that in the form of a list, it's also very much clear to the candidate who are applying to the job that what is expected out of this job requirement and in general out of the job position that which they are planning to apply. Okay, so these are very important things. Okay, so ideally you should keep it very crisp, precise, and in bullet points. I normally see a very good job requirement will have 10 to maximum 20 points, not more than that. Anything over and above that becomes too much of details. I think sometimes it also scares the candidates that okay, there's so much of expectation from us. Okay. So I would say a good job requirement would be the one which is very specific to the point and not very less, not too much, right? It should be balanced in between. Okay. So that's the thing, right? Now, as I mentioned that it should not have too much of details. At the same time, it should not have too less a thing. Okay, it should be good. It should have good enough points to convince the candidate that they are the ones who should apply to this job position. Okay, because essentially, what you need to write down is also important in order to for them to be able to perform certain job duties. Okay, so if you don't write them, and let's say if you simply write qualification as someone who is a graduate, okay, so you can get maybe 10,000 applicants. But the moment you write, let's say, someone who is a graduate in business administration, so maybe the number of applicants would come down to, let's say, few hundreds instead of few thousands, right? And then you can add more layers of qualifications and skills in the job requirement, because these are the ones that you believe as a company or as a recruiter that are important for them to perform certain job duties, right? So yeah, so that's what the job requirements uh, are. So any questions? All right, so I'll move forward. So now let's look into the different benefits and also the importance of job requirements. Okay. So now, as I told you that job description is something which have multiple details, right? And job requirements will be one small section of your job description. Okay. Now, but at the same time, this might be the most important part of it because, as I mentioned, that all the things that are required for a job to be performed better by the candidates are mentioned in the job requirements. So no one can ignore it, whether you're on the recruitment side or on the candidate side. So both has to be equally vigilance of what is written there, and accordingly they should probably post or apply. So that's how it should be. Now, this, as I mentioned in the previous slide also, that this is a section that candidate will focus and they will try to see if they are a good fit for this role or not. Okay. Now, why I normally avoid putting too much of details, I'll give you an example. Okay. So this is for a tech hiring. Okay. Now, a lot of time what I have seen is if you come across a position of a full stack developer, okay, and I've seen this as a common practice, these days, a lot of recruiters make this kind of mistake that they don't, when they put up the job description of a full stack developer, they try to mention as many, programming skills or languages as possible. Okay. For example, maybe someone from the IT can understand or relate to that at least. It's not nothing to understand over here. But yeah, let's say there are multiple programming languages which are required for the front end development. Okay. So it could be HTML, JavaScript, it could be, let's say, React or Angular, and so on. Now, your current project or your company may require only one of these languages, but at the same time, you're looking at hiring someone who can probably have all of these skills. Now, the problem with this kind of job description is that people get scared and they think, okay, even if I apply, I just know one of the languages. So there's a chance that maybe I'll get rejected, and maybe one of the good candidate might not apply thinking that okay, it will be wasted time for both of us, right? And probably he or she will try to apply somewhere else. Okay. So instead of that, what you should probably do is, a lot of companies do that, by the way. So you should probably mention something like a primary set of qualifications and skills, right? And then you can have something which comes as an optional. So now you can say, okay, those of you who know React language can apply to this position, but having, let's say, a knowledge, strong knowledge in Angular or other technologies that you want to mention would be a plus. Okay. So now the candidate has the confidence, okay, React is the primary requirement. And maybe if I'm good, I can prove myself that I know this language properly. So company will provide me opportunity to get trained on the other languages, right? So this is why it's very important that every detail that goes into the job requirements should be weighed properly by the recruitment team. Okay. So you should focus only on the things that are the most important and try to avoid some unnecessary stuffs over here. Okay. So yeah, so this is what happens. So candidates will read the job description and then decide whether they want to apply to this job or not. Okay. Of course, you will get the other kind of candidates also who will blindly apply to any kind of job, but that's okay. That's the hardest part of being a recruiter. So you will always come across both, relevant and irrelevant applications. So nowadays, at least you have some tools, platforms to help you shortlist candidates, maybe filter out some of these things, right? So you can still be in a better position. Now, let's talk about the benefits of job requirements. So first benefit is quite obvious that it always ensures that the right fit for the role. So people who are applying, they would know that, okay, these are the skills, these are the qualifications, right, required for this job. So they will know that whether they are the right fit for this job or not. Okay, so that's the first thing. Second thing is it enhances employee performance. Now, this is very, very important. Okay. Now, see, in an organization and in a, I would say, in a mid to large organization, normally people are being hired very specific to a certain job role, right? And most of the time, they will be allocated a certain list of activities or tasks on a daily basis. Okay. Now, maybe in a startup culture, you would probably find multiple roles and responsibilities being handled by the same person that I know. So they might not have a very linear kind of job profile, but most of the places, the job profile will be very linear. Like if you are hiring for, let's say, maybe for a web developer, you can even put something like front-end developer or back-end developer as two different profiles, right? So, and you would know that if you're hiring someone who is an expert or having good amount of experience in that particular domain. So, if you're hiring an expert for that particular job, so obviously it will enhance the employee performance because that person would always be in line with what you're hiring for, and they already have the skills. Okay. Third thing is it increases the productivity because that person also knows that the position for which he or she is being hired. So they'll try to stick to that, and maybe later on, you keep training or grooming her or him uh, according to the requirements of the company. But initially, that person will know that okay, this is what his or her experience is about, and why that person is being hired by the company, right? So they will put their heart and soul into the job. Okay, so this is very important. And another very important thing is it reduces the hiring cost. So this is very critical. The cost is always a combination of the timeline in which the right candidate is being hired, okay, and also how many candidates are being evaluated in the process, right? So all the best scenario would be like as a recruiter, I would like to hire someone, let's say within a week, maybe 15 days, whatever my timeline might be, and while interviewing maybe less than let's say 10 or 20 applicants, right? But that doesn't happen a lot of cases. So you always have to go through tons and tons of applications, and you interview so many people. Then there's a lot of discussions going on. It could be with respect to, let's say, the compensation, the job role itself. It could be about the relocation of the candidate, maybe the working mode like hybrid, remote, and so many things, right? So as a recruiter, you want to reduce the hiring cost. So eventually, if your job requirement puts everything in detail, including I mean, I'm talking about job description in fact. So job description, if it highlights, let's say, maybe a location, even a salary, for that matter. So it becomes very easy for the candidate to decide whether they want this job or not. Okay. So that significantly reduces the hiring cost. So any questions as of now? Okay. So now let's look into the differences between these two. So what job description is about and how it's different from job specification. Okay. So normally when you talk about a job description, so it includes certain details, right? It's more like a narration or description that includes things such as, let's say, the characteristics, the duties, and also the requirements of a job. Okay. So we already talked about the requirements as in, qualifications, skills, etc. Now, duties would be something which is more like the day-to-day task of a person. For example, even if you're being hired as a sales manager, so one of your day-to-day tasks could be you prepare a daily sales report and you upload that into the CRM or the MIS, whatever the company operates on. And then you have to send a detail like maybe your target for today or maybe day after and so on, and maybe a snapshot of how much of the target is being achieved and what is left out for this week and so on. Again, depends upon the job role, but this is just an example of a sales manager, right? So their duty could involve maybe having a team meeting, coordinating with internal teams and maybe the client side and things like that. So all of these things will be written under the duties, like what you normally do on a day-to-day basis, right? So requirement basically tells you the qualifications and the skills, and duties will tell you that what exactly you will perform in this particular job role. Okay. And then it also includes certain characteristics like whether this is an individual contributor role, or is it more like, let's say, a team role, team management kind of role, or whether this is a leadership kind of role and things like that. So all those kind of things are there in the job description. Okay, so job description is very exhaustive. It consists of all of these details, right? Now, let's talk about the job specification. Okay, and normally, when you look at the job description, they are mostly written in the bullet points. Okay, and they'll have multiple things listed over there. Now, a job specification is something like a statement that contains the required qualifications, skills, knowledge, and the abilities to perform a specific job. So it's like, maybe you can think about this is more like the detailing. Let's say, I'll give an example. Let's say if I'm hiring for the position of a sales manager, right? So I'll probably highlight things like we are looking for an ideal candidate who could be a potential sales manager for the northern territory of of our business operations, and this person must be a go-getter, and so on and so forth, right? So this is more like a statement that comes in the job specification for that matter. Okay, and then you highlight certain specific things which are part of that. Okay. Now, job description normally is the functional description of a job. As I mentioned, that it talks about qualifications, skills, duties, and all that stuff. What you do as part of the job. While job specification, it normally talks about some of the essential attributes of the job holder. Like you mentioned, whether this is this person could be a leader, this could be a go-getter, right? He has to be excellent in the client communication and so many other things, right? So all those kind of things are very essential attributes of that job holder. He should be able to manage, let's say, a team of 20 people, right? So these are very essential attributes for this particular position. Okay, and that's how it would appear in the job specification. Now, now, how exactly do we come to the job description? So normally, what we do is we go through a process called as job analysis. Now, what job analysis allows us to do is we are able to clearly identify the functional side of a job, right? So whether it's qualifications, skills, the job roles, responsibilities, and things like that. Okay? While the job specification is more like an output of the job description. So you would not be able to write a very good job specification unless until you have written a job description first. Okay. Because job descriptions are all these minute details about qualifications, skills, duties, characteristics, everything for that matter, right? And what you do is you probably try to summarize them and come up with a statement that tells the candidates more about what are the things that are supposed to be very important, or what we call as essential attributes for this particular position. Okay. So once you've written the job description, I think it's very easy for you to come up with a very good summary and representation of the entire thought process, which highlights the essential attributes of that particular job, right? So that's why we write the job description first, and then we try to create a job description, uh, sorry, job specification out of that job description. Okay. Now, the final point would be it can consist of information which is normally related to, let's say, the job title. For example, in this case, it could be sales manager, Northern India. Okay. Or job location could be, let's say, Delhi NCR. And then, of course, the duties like what I should do on a daily basis and so on. Okay. Now, job specification can consist of details such as, let's say, the education of the person, the health, fitness, experience, and other characteristics or attributes for that matter. So that's all it will be. So let me know if you have any queries at this moment. All right. So let's do a small exercise. Okay. I think this would be little engaging too, right? I believe that you're able to see the Word document that I'm writing. So maybe you can tell me one by one what do you think should be written in the job description, and are you able to see my screen like Word document? Someone
Yes,
says
sir.
no, someone says yes, yes. Okay, great. Right. So
So, hi sir, may I?
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah,
actually, your screen is visible, but can you increase your font size a little bit? It's too.
yeah, yeah. Sure, sure. I'll do that. Thanks
Thank
for
you,
saying.
thank you, sir.
Is it better now?
Yes, sir, better. Thank you.
All right. I can increase it further. Yeah. Cool. So now let's talk about a certain job role. Okay. Let's say we're talking about a sales manager role only. Okay. Now I want to keep this engaging, and I want you to apply whatever we are learning today. So, this could be a small exercise for us, right? So tell me quickly, you can tell in the chat window also, and tell us in the, speaker also, like what all should come up in the job description. Not enough answer. Okay, shall we put it like qualifications, maybe skills, job role? So I'll give you the headers.
Their job title, their location, they are going to work, their duties they
Hmm.
have to follow as a sales manager.
Hmm. Right. So
And
location would be
in
another
job
thing.
specification, we can add their educational details
Hmm. Okay.
and their knowledge related to the sales related, like their certifications and like that. If particularly we need their specifications like that, we can add in that.
Okay. Anyone has any other thoughts? Handling team to achieve certain targets on a month. So, Shweta, this should
In
come up in the job description or
job
specification?
description.
Job description.
In
Okay.
job specification, this qualification skills will come
Hmm.
under job specification.
Okay. So, where shall I put this one? Handling teams to achieve certain targets.
Sir, it would be in job description.
So, where exactly in job description? Like, is there any particular place you want me to keep it?
I guess in skills.
Skills. Okay. It should be in skills or should it be in the
It
job
should
role?
be in key responsibilities.
Roles and
Job
responsibilities, right?
role.
Okay. Anything else that should come up? So let's say I'll just put location as maybe Bangalore.
In job
Job.
title, team leader should come.
Sorry. The job title could be the exact position for
Yes,
which you're hiring.
salesman.
So yeah, so if you're hiring for sales manager, so that could become. So qualifications definitely could be things related to academic and experience and everything. Then skills. What else?
It can be building relationships with the existing clients and
Okay.
trying to attain uh, new
And
clients as well.
where shall we put this?
Roles and responsibilities.
Okay. Sorry, you mentioned about attending client. I think someone mentioned about the attending client meetings and all, right? Someone mentioned key performance indicators, creating sales reports or presentation. Okay. All right. So where shall I put this? I mean, you have to tell me two things. One is, of course, what you should put, and also where exactly we should put it.
In job description, we can add like things like to handle the sales representatives duties, whether
Mhm.
they are doing their job correct or not. We can add as we are looking for a sales manager in job description.
So anyway, see, there's a job specification which will summarize the things, right? So when there's something which is like a statement, so that can be formed on the basis of what we have written in the job roles and responsibilities. For example, if we are talking about someone should have a team leading experience, and they should have done something based on targets and all. They would have followed some KPIs. I think there's some mention of creating sales reports, presentation, strategy. So all those kind of things can come up over here also, and then we can finally pick up things which we believe is important and can be put in the job specification, more like a statement for that matter. Okay. Okay, so anyways, the idea was, to help you kind of relate to everything. It might not look like a best job description for that matter, okay? But yeah, I mean, that's not the idea. So it will take a lot of time for us to frame that. But yeah, the good thing is that at least you know where exactly to start. Okay. So any questions? All right. So let's move forward. Now, so these are some of the things mentioned. Like we have already talked about few things in the previous slide, but when it comes to forming a job requirement, so you can essentially look into these things. Like you can first start with maybe the work experience, especially if you are doing a lateral hiring. So maybe for a fresher, this might not be relevant. But for lateral hiring, you can always start with the experience, let's say minimum 5 years of experience in B2B sales or things like that. Okay, and then you can highlight things, let's say 1 year of team leadership kind of skills. So experience can also have multiple bands. It's not like, sorry, it's not like a single thing, such as 5 years of experience. So maybe that person who has 5 years of experience in sales, but he started probably as a sales executive. So he was not always the leader in the team, right? And later on, he was promoted to, let's say, maybe a sales manager and so on. So you should probably highlight these kind of details also while creating this job requirement, that okay, he should have at least 5 years of experience in overall sales, then maybe 2 years of team management experience, let's say maybe 3 years of minimum 3 years of experience in making presentations and all, because maybe in the initial 2 years of his career, that person has not created any kind of presentation. Okay, so you also have to think about all these requirements very specifically. I have seen, and this is a very funny thing, by the way. So you know that how AI is coming into our lives nowadays and affecting everything, including, of course, the job requirements and all. Now, I was reading one of the job description, and where someone mentioned that they're looking for someone who has an experience in AI uh, with more than, I think, 7 years or something. And everyone was laughing, okay, because AI is something that has come into picture. Like, I'm not saying that AI was not there, but now if you're talking about the job roles, so now we are talking about job roles with respect to the AI, maybe for the last couple of years, okay? And you cannot expect someone with an experience of 7 years in that particular domain, if you know that, okay, this is not, how long the technology has been in place for most of the organizational use. Okay, so you also have to think about the logic behind that. What you should write when it comes to the expectations. It's not just the experience part, but anything for that matter. Okay, so that's the first thing about the work experience. So ideally, I would write something which gives details of everything. It's not just the overall experience, but also related to some of the important duties and the roles of the candidate. Okay, and you should probably put it logically. Like if something is required only for 1 year, that's okay. 5 years experience in sales doesn't mean that that person will have 5 years of experience in team management. Okay, so team management experience could be cut down to, let's say, 2 or 3 years. Okay, so that's first thing. Second, of course, is the educational qualifications. Okay, so wherein you can talk about, and again, it depends upon the role and the relatedness of the education qualification. Okay, now for some of the roles, definitely, we can be very specific. Let's say, uh, we can say that we need bachelor's in engineering in a particular trade. Let's say computer science, maybe mechanical, and all. But sometimes a very generic thing, like as simple as, let's say, any graduate or any postgraduate is good enough. Again, it depends, whether there's a relatedness between the educational qualification and the job requirement. Okay. Plus, you can also highlight other things, like there could be some important certifications, there could be some important training and all. So all those kind of things can be there depending upon the job role. For example, if we talk about IT related job, and if it comes to project management or some kind of senior role in the IT, so something like a project management, certification, PMP could be very helpful. So that can also come up in the education qualification. And you're basically saying that to the candidate that, okay, if you don't have a PMP, you probably don't fit into the role, even if you have, let's say, 15 or 20 years of experience for that matter. Okay. So all those kind of things can be highlighted over here. Then physical ability is again very subjective thing. So not every job these days demand different types of physical ability. So in fact, especially able people can work in most of the domain. Okay, but yes, if something like let's say like a mining or maybe a door-to-door sales kind of things are there. So maybe, physical ability can be a limitation for a person. Okay. So again, if it's not required, I don't think you have to write this. But in case if you have a policy or if you have a job role which is probably very rigorous to for a person with a certain physical ability, right? So you should probably highlight that. Okay. Now, uh, this is very important, the personality traits. Okay. Now, a lot of times this gets ignored, but it becomes a very important aspect of the job once you start, talking about anything from the mid management to the higher management. And even I think, bearing the entry level, jobs, I would say this is still a very important thing, personality traits, right? So you need to know more about the person, let's say, for example, uh, maybe you're hiring for a supply chain position. Okay. So maybe you need someone who is very methodical, in nature, in general. Okay. So you don't expect a creative person to take over the supply chain related roles, but maybe you need someone who is very process oriented, who is very disciplined, who is very ethical, and so on, right? So this becomes very important. Now, if you're hiring for, let's say, a sales manager, so you'll probably need someone who is very good communicator, has very good interpersonal skills. Uh, that person is not short-tempered, so that is very important because while having these client communication and all, things can often go in a very awkward position, right? So you need someone who can be keep their sanity level in place all the time, right? So these are all personality traits. So you can highlight those kind of things as part of your job requirements. Okay. Now, communication skills and soft skills. So of course, this is important in uh, perspective of the job. I would say that the person should always skills. It's something that I have seen that a lot of people have career out of this, even if they're ordinary in there. So they might not be very skilled, very highly skilled in the let's say technical skills, but just because they're to rise up the ladder. So this is something which is very important and becoming even more and more important, especially with so much of diverse team and across the geographic team being hired and so on. Okay, so you should definitely highlight this. Yes, for some of the roles, you might not expect that as a make or break kind of criteria. Like, for example, if you're hiring for a back-end data processing role, or let's say an engineering role, which doesn't, even though it includes communication, but yeah, I mean, that might not be the most primary skill. So you should always highlight what you're looking for, right? And finally, the technical knowledge. So let's say I was talking about this case of the web developer, software developer. Okay. So in that case, if you need to highlight certain things like the programming languages they must know, right? And certain other things like any kind of tools, platforms, technology that they must be aware of. So all those kind of things can be highlighted uh, over there. Okay. So any questions? Okay. So by the way, who does this job of coming up with the job requirements? I haven't talked about that, but who do you think would be held responsible for this?
Recruitment manager.
Okay. Just solely the recruitment manager?
The company.
The team, the
If
specific
you're in
department has
consultation
to
with the
come
manager,
come up
hiring
with the
manager.
requirements.
It can be the
Sorry.
immediate supervisor.
Okay. I think there was some overlap in between, so I believe that
Okay.
both the people have spoken. All right.
For example, if it is a production department, it would be the
Mhm.
department that would come up with the requirements. And if it's a quality, the department along with HR together will make the uh, job requirement. It is a
Yeah.
uh, 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 team effort of both the immediate department and the HR.
Mhm. Right, right. No, that's actually correct. So normally, the hiring team works very closely with the that particular department. Like she just mentioned the example of that particular department. So and any it could be the team lead in that department, or it could be like maybe a couple of people who normally deal with that person on a day-to-day basis, right? So they would probably highlight few things that what exactly I expect out of this person. Okay, especially when it comes to the hard factors like qualifications, skills, technical knowledge, etc. Maybe the soft factors are something which maybe most of the recruitment manager uh, they are able to figure out, because they work on these things day in day out, right? But most of the hard factors, I would say, would come directly as an input from the team leads and other members in that particular department and so on. Okay. Sometimes it could be also like you're just hiring for a position for which a person is already planning to leave the organization, right? So you can probably sit one-on-one with that person and take his help or her help to hire that another person. So that person could play a very important role in drafting this role, sorry, requirement, and give you very specific inputs, because that person is the one who is handling that job as of now. Okay, and yeah. So now, moving forward, I'll talk about different, methods and strategies of coming up with the job requirements. Okay. So I think, no, this is not exactly the method. Just a minute. All right, yeah. Sorry, I just got a little confused. So yeah. So now the interview method. So these are all methods, by the way. So it's related. I was getting a little confused because I thought it was something else, but yeah, it is okay. So the interview method is something, when the analyst questions an employee about their role. Like, for example, you sit one-to-one, and then you talk to that particular employee, which is who is already holding that role, and get as much information as possible. Okay. Like I was mentioning about this particular example. So I'll give you another example. For example, let's say uh, it's a role for performance marketing manager. Okay, performance marketing manager is someone who is actually a digital marketing professional who manages a digital marketing for a company. But the primary role for that person is to run paid campaigns. So you might have seen some advertisements in Google, on Instagram, Facebook, etc. So the performance marketing manager is the one who manages these advertisement campaigns, And the reason it's called as performance marketing manager is because this person uh, maintains a certain performance based on certain targets that could be KPIs and the KRAs that are given to them. For example, let's say uh, one of the KPI for this person could be how much return the company makes over the investment that it has in the ad expenses, right? So let's say, for example, if you are spending 1 rupee on the ad campaigns, so how much money you should earn for the company as a performance marketing manager? So let's say the performance marketing manager says that I can earn 5 times, like I'll give you the return 5 times with respect to the ad spending, right? So that becomes 5x return for the ad expenses the company is bearing for running that campaign. Okay. So this is just one of the KPIs associated with performance marketing management, right? So what the analyst will do is that person, she will probably go to that employee and maybe ask him about the roles, trying to understand the nitty-gritties of the roles, what he does every day, and she will accordingly note down all these important things. That, for example, one of the things would be this person creates a campaign in Google or Facebook or Instagram on a daily basis, and then manages and monitors that campaign, right? So this could come up when the analyst is asking the question. So that could be one of the methods where you do an interview method. Now, the second method could be the observation method. Now, observation method could be helpful and probably more of, you can say, non-technical work, wherein the nature of work is more like maybe interpersonal communication, calls, meetings, presentation, maybe supervising and all that kind of things, right? So what someone can do is they can, observe that employee and they can see what task they are performing. For example, let's say if there's a supply chain manager, now this person goes from one department to another. Maybe from there he goes to a third department, and the recruit manager, what she does is she's constantly trying to make a note. Okay, this guy is moving between different departments, so basically there's a coordination required over there, right? Then this person has to talk to different stakeholders, whether it could be, let's say, ground level employees or the manager of that department, right? So now she understands that, there's a lot of internal interpersonal communication is required, and not only at different levels. So obviously the temperament of that person is very, very important. How that person handles each and everyone is very important. So, these are the things that they can start. So this is basically more of an observation method. Okay. Then comes the questionnaire method. So questionnaire method is when the analyst would create a series of questions for employees to answer about their job. Now again, this can be, I would put that this can work for both technical and non-technical jobs, or any job for that matter. And wherein maybe you can have probably 5 or 10 very common questions, and then you can also have few questions which are very, very specific to that role. Okay, so all those kind of things can be created in a series of questions, and then the employee who is already handling that role, they can have, tell more about these, and based on that they will come up with their job requirements. And the fourth one is called as daily method. So daily method is basically when the same employee who is in the position and for which a new job role requirement is being created, or job is being offered. So that person will create a record daily of the task they perform. So now, how is it different from the other method? Is because the employee themselves think, okay, maybe let's say in the morning I log into the system, right? Then what is the next thing I do after I log in? So maybe I'll send an email to my manager saying, okay, these are the 5 tasks that I am supposed to do today. And then she will probably do something, right? And so on. So she would know that, how to start the day and how to end the day, and what are the 10 or 20 things which she is supposed to do between the, on a daily basis. Okay. Maybe there are a few of the things which are like the daily chores for her, right? And maybe some of them are like maybe not daily but weekly tasks. Okay, so all those kind of things can be recorded and given as a handout to the recruitment manager, and then she can draft a job requirement based on that. Now, you might ask me that are the do we follow only one of these methods? The answer would be no. I would say that you can always pick up more than one method, again depending upon the job role for which you're hiring, and maybe you can apply all these four methods also. But again, depends. If you're you should probably pick up one of these methods as a primary one. Let's say if you think that questionnaire method can give you a good amount of information, so go for that as a primary method, and then you can think about maybe daily method as one. So basically there are questions coming from you as an analyst, and then the daily method is something which gives employee the way to record their own daily tasks. So now you have two sides of the information, right? So maybe you have made some assumptions, and basis of that you have created a questionnaire, but maybe that might still not give you the 100% clarity about the job requirements. But the moment you add a daily method on the top of that, so that becomes more comprehensive, right? So you have to kind of, you can mix and match, but you have to pick one method as clearly as the primary method, and then you can see which method can give you more information and so on. Okay. So any questions?
Sir, how this
Yeah.
interview method is different from questionnaire method? They are somewhat like same.
Mm, See, interview method is like you're probably talking, one on one, and then maybe you can have some open-ended questions. You can have probably some discussions also, right? It might not be a very specific question and answer kind of round, like a questionnaire method. Maybe some of the questions could be objective, some of them could be subjective, and all, right? But in the interview method, a lot of time it will happen that maybe you ask one question and then you hear the answer and you hear something very interesting. So maybe as a manager, you want to further investigate that particular point which has been told by the employee in their answer, right? So this can probably keep going on, and you can gather even more information than what you might have thought about initially.
Okay, thank you.
Any other question? Okay. So now let's talk about the job specification. So we already talked about the benefits of job requirements, right? And we did it probably here, right? So job requirements, benefits. Now we're going to talk about the benefits of job specifications. So first point, again, it's very similar to what we discussed in the job description. So it helps you in selecting the right candidate for the right job. Okay, so that's always the most important thing or benefit. Then the second thing is it helps employees to adjust in different working standards. Okay, now how it would make sense is, maybe I'll give you an example. Let's say that you are hiring for a position of national level sales head. Okay, it's not just the sales manager, but the person who is getting hired is actually a sales manager, right? So basically for this person there's a transition in the role. So this person is moving from a domain where maybe he or she was only limited to, let's say, a particular territory, which was under him or her, right? But now that person is supposed to take care of the entire in country. So national level, national sales head. So now this is going to change drastically for him, right? So uh, there will be very different working standards for someone who is a national level sales head as compared to someone who is working at a certain territory. Now your challenges are very different because now you're talking to maybe a sales manager of 25 or 30 different states and union territories, right? Then they will have their own cultural constraints, languages, market would not be standard for them. And there are so many other things, okay? So when you clearly mention some of the things which they are supposed to do as a national level sales head, so it will help them adjust. It will basically tell them, okay, yeah, this is what I need to do. So I've already done this, but now I am taking this job which is probably a notch higher than what I'm currently doing. Okay, so these are the kind of adjustments that I need to do, and I should be mentally prepared for that. Okay, so if you can give them more clarity about the working environment, maybe the role-related expectations, okay, so all those kind of things. So it will make a smooth transition for that particular employee. Okay. Now, the third point is the cost. We already talked about that in case of the job description also. So if the process is efficient and it's faster, so it's always going to reduce the overall cost. Okay, so that's what it should do. So if you are putting up a very good job specification, that also means that the candidates who are reading them is probably thinking of him or herself as the right candidate, and only the relevant ones are trying to apply more as compared to the ones who might not fit into that. Okay, so yeah, the fourth point is it adds job satisfaction. So, and of course, that helps you in reducing the employee turnover. Now, it's very simple. Like, if I mention these things that, okay, this is your challenge as a national level sales head, you have to talk to territory managers of different territories, states, and all, right? And of course, they will have their own local or cultural constraints and other implications, right? So you're already preparing them mentally for that kind of role. Okay. But when they actually accept that role, they're already preparing themselves and now they see, okay, these are the things that are happening. So it kind of provides them a job satisfaction. Okay, I now have been promoted to the national level sales head, so this is what I'm entitled to. I probably have more power, more responsibilities too. At the same time, I'm getting access to this diverse set of people, right? So they would probably think of this as a more positive thing instead of negative. But now consider this: you hire someone as a sales manager, okay, and uh, maybe initially you told them that, okay, you will be handling only one territory and then that's it. And then all of a sudden, your national level sales head is fired, or maybe, he simply quits the job, right? And then you ask this sales manager to take up this job. Okay. And now he's in a fix because he was probably not prepared for this. And then he starts functioning under the pressure because you wanted him to function like a national level sales head, and maybe he's not satisfied with what he's doing, and probably he was not prepared, right? And that kind of creates a negative job satisfaction. So yeah, and very important thing, it is helpful for training and development. No, see, there's always a transition, right? If you are being hired by some other company, the companies also don't expect you to know everything, and especially if they're hiring you for a position which is probably higher than where you're working for. Okay, so they expect you to go through some kind of training. It could be an on-job training, it could be a formal training for that matter. Maybe they want you to prepare for certain certifications, especially when in terms of the technical skills, right? So all these kind of things become very important because you will know that, okay, for what the candidates are being hired and what exactly you have to provide them once they are hired. Okay, so that both the recruiters and the candidates have the clarity about these things. So any question? So just summing up, few things and giving you the objectives. So what are the objectives of job specification? Okay. So as I mentioned, this is more like a summary of whatever you expect out of a candidate. At the same time, highlighting some very important attributes or aspects of that job. Okay. So it basically kind of allows candidates to go through the very specific details in a summarized kind of manner. Okay. And it also helps them understand that if I'm being hired for a certain type of job, right? So what is that I require in terms of the skill sets to get the maximum output, right? So when you talk about the jobs, okay, the same job, let's say the sales manager job, could be different for different positions. For example, let's say there's a city level sales manager, and then there's a state level sales manager, right? So it might sound like a little related job, but yet their job roles, their tasks, the outputs that are expected out of them would be very, very different from each other. Okay, so you can highlight those things in the job specification, saying, okay, you have to handle a, let's say, a team of 30 sales manager in this particular state because you are being hired as a sales manager at the state level, right? And there would be some additional work like daily reporting, daily meetings, calls, setting expectation, tracking the targets for each individual rather than your own sales target, right? Things like that. Okay. And of course, the point that job specification gives you more important details that could be related to skills, experience, education, uh, even the personality traits, like I mentioned that, if you want to identify the leadership skills, communication skills, and so on. Okay. So all of these things become a very important component, and then this basically helps you accomplish the objectives of your job. Okay, any questions? So I think this is what we are going to do now. Okay. So when I say role playing, so I don't want to go into the role playing related to the interview process because that is not our objective today. Okay. So what we're going to do today is we're going to take up a particular job and we'll try to see how to, define that job together, right? And then we'll talk about few other points. Okay. And in between, if you have any questions, you can let me know. I'll just stop presenting and I'm just trying to open one more document. Okay, so just yeah. I believe now you're able to see this. I'll just try to increase the font for this. So just give me a minute. Are you able to see my screen, by the way? The job description that I'm showing you? Okay, that's great. Right, so I'll just increase the font size also, by the way. Is this okay? Are you able to see this?
Yes, sir.
That's great. So I'll just give you a live example of how these things take place. So we basically started with a requirement, and we have to hire for different kind of positions for a job role. Okay, and uh, and these are the things that are actually not part of the job description or the job requirement. Okay, I'm just telling you some of the things. Like I think someone asked about the interview method. What is different, difference between the interview method and then, of course, the questionnaire and all. Okay. So what we did was we had a direct call with the company for which we were hiring for this particular position. Okay. And this position is known as e-commerce manager. Okay. So the HR from the company, she was on the call and she started explaining us about a lot of things. So what we did was we did make a good number of points and minutes of notes, everything. But here I'm just showing you some of the very important aspects of this job. Okay. So before I tell you about that, getting into details and all, and how we went about creating these things. So I will give you a little bit glimpse about what this job is about. Okay, so just give me a moment. So now in this particular job, this job title, as you can see, this is known as e-commerce manager. So e-commerce manager, what that person does is that person is supposed to handle the e-commerce platforms for the client. Okay, now this client, they basically want someone who has handled the similar kind of role for another company, right? And in the context of e-commerce, I can say that Amazon, Flipkart, and all these marketplaces. So a lot of companies, when they start their e-commerce business, right, they don't sell through their own website. Most of them. Normally, what they do is they find the right kind of platform. For example, Amazon, Flipkart could be the most relevant platform for most of them. But then, of course, there could be Mintra for, let's say, for apparel and fashion. Nika could be for cosmetics and fashion again. Likewise, there could be, let's say, Tata 1mg or NetMeds for pharmacy, medicines, etc. Right? So these are different platforms. So they want someone who has handled, these kind of platforms in their existing or previous job, right? So that was the primary requirement. So that's why they call this position as e-commerce manager. Okay. No, we can't call this as a digital marketing manager because digital marketing is something which is very generic, in terms of the name. Okay. No, the HR told us very clearly that these are the things. Like I'll just quickly read them out for you so that you can understand better, and then we can see if the job description which is written below is actually accurate or it's different from what the expectations are. Okay. So. So she told us that she wants to hire an executive. So she's not expecting someone who is a manager, as in handling the team, by the way. Okay, so even though this job title tells you that this person is a manager, but this is actually an individual contributor role for now. The reason being, the company is a startup, and they basically want this person to handle everything on his own. Okay. Now, what happens is when we tell the candidate and when we evaluate the candidate, right? Uh, so it's very important that to understand which role they are performing, like whether they are already manager or whether they are already working as an individual contributor role. And we have seen that, like when we're trying to hire for the same client, we got two different kind of candidates. One was someone who was actually managing a team already, okay, but yet that person was able to fit into this particular salary slab and everything, but he was happy, he was happy taking up the individual contributor role just because of the salary factor. Okay. And then on the other hand, we had an executive who was actually managing things for a company, and of course he was getting similar kind of role, but with better compensation because of the relevant experience and everything. Okay. Now tell me very quickly, like, who do you think we should hire, the first guy or the second guy? If you are a recruitment manager, whom would you hire? I don't see any answer. Anyone? Shall I repeat it? Okay, I'll do that, not a problem. So basically, as I told you that the role reads as e-commerce manager, but because the company is a very small company, it's a startup, so they want someone as an individual contributor today. So this person who is being hired immediately needs to perform all these tasks and everything on his or her own, right? But tomorrow, the same person should be capable enough to be migrated to the position of a manager if that person has to handle, let's say, a team of two or three people. Okay. So now we have two candidates. One is like already an individual contributor. So let's say that that person is called as A, who is already managing everything day in day out for a different company, and now he's seeking a different position or salary or whatever, right? So that's why he's looking to switch this off. And now let's say there's another person. She's basically looking after a team, and she has all these people who are working as an individual contributor under her. But even then, she fits into that particular salary, you can say, range, and that's why she's happy to take this individual contributor role, even though she is not currently doing the same thing. I mean, she might have done that in the past, but as of now, she has a team to look after it. So she is the person B. Now you tell me, whom shall we hire based on that?
A. Yes, sir.
A,
I
B,
will
right?
go
sir.
with B, sir,
Okay. Why B?
because
Sir,
she's
B,
already
because
done
she
the role
has,
Hmm.
and is managing
yes, she
people
has
already.
already
So now
done.
when she gets promoted as a manager, when she has to look after, like, take care, take into control 2 to 3 people, she will
Hmm.
already be eligible for that.
See, so I'll tell you, I would still go for A in the first place. And while I'll do it, so I'll explain my own reason because, I come from this domain. Okay. So normally what happens, and I'll go back to the GD again. Okay. See, once you reach a certain level, like, let's say you have been a manager and let's say you have been performing that role for, let's say, last 2 years or 3 years. Okay. Irrespective of, whatever your salary might, that's a different discussion altogether. So now you don't know. I won't say you don't know, but rather you are not. How do I put it? You're short on practice. So if I tell you, uh, let's open the Amazon dashboard and run this test, optimization test on all the products. So you might think you know that probably, but you've not done it for years, maybe 2 or 3 years. Okay. And that would mean that, once you join this company, you probably have to start revising your concepts, maybe getting into that zone where you are the one who is supposed to do these things within the dashboard yourself without having a need to ask someone else because you don't have someone over there, right? So what I'll rather do is I will still go for a person A, provided that the person has some certain soft skill, which basically allows him to become a manager tomorrow. Okay. So that's what my approach would be. For now, for the client, this thing is very important that that person should be able to execute all this task. Okay. And then this is secondary because that same person can be promoted, let's say, once they start hiring and growing, maybe 1 year, 2 years down the time, the same person can be promoted. So what I'll do is, while forming this job description, what I also try to do is, I'll also highlight the importance of the communication, whether it's an interpersonal communication, try to evaluate his interpersonal communication during the interview also, and try to see, like, if that person can have some sort of leadership abilities, or will he always remain an individual contributor, right? So that's how I'll see. And especially in a role like this where you have to get your hands dirty at everything, as in you have to do the ground level job a lot of times. So maybe that manager, it can happen that maybe she's expecting sorry, she's accepting this offer because of the better compensation, but maybe 2 or 3 months down the time she gets frustrated and thinking, okay, her previous role was better, maybe she should not have switched to this particular company, right? So this can happen. I'm happy to hear other views, in case if you have any. Okay. So, yeah, so these are the information. Like, so that was first thing, that salary. So, because they cannot go beyond 7 LPA, so that was straight away given to me from the HR. Then they highlighted some of the platforms like Amazon, Flipkart, and some of the things. They also told us what exactly this person should be able to do, like running marketplace ads, keywords, SEO, and all that stuff, right? And they highlighted what they should not they're not supposed to do. Okay. Now this is something which is very important, like I was talking about a good job description or specification. Okay. So sometimes it's also important to highlight certain things which are not required. Okay. Now this was given as a requirement from the hiring manager, right? She told us that, okay, I don't need someone on the operation side. Okay. Uh, so let's try to understand what does she mean by this, in the context of this particular job role. Okay. So running an ad campaign, optimizing for keywords, and also this is very specific marketing related work. Okay. And but then in the e-commerce setup, the job related to, let's say, order fulfillment. So let's say if the company receives 50 orders today, and now someone from their team has to look after those 50 orders, whether they are being packed, whether they are being, tagged with the right candidate, and so on. So all those kind of things. So those are very important aspects, right? But yet it requires a very different kind of skill set. Okay. And you don't perform your marketing manager to do that order fulfillment kind of role. Okay. But there are companies where the same person can handle both of these aspects also. So she was very clear that, okay, I don't need someone who is only doing that. Like maybe they're doing it because of the need of the current company, but their expertise should be more on the marketing side instead of the operation side of the e-commerce platforms. Okay. So this was very, very important. So that's what it happens when you start having these interviews and questions and answers, maybe whatever method you're following for getting the job requirements. Okay. Right. Just give me, 1 minute. I'll be back. Okay. Just give me a minute. Yeah. So I was talking about this particular job. Now, just read into this. Okay, I'll try to explain what exactly it is. So it says that, so I just taking these over the notes. So that's why, like, I have not used the complete sentences, but I'll try to explain. So they mentioned clearly that they want someone, okay, who has handled certain type of brands. Okay, so they just don't want everyone, right? So they mentioned that someone who has handled D2C or direct to consumer brands like Mama Earth, First Cry. So these are all examples of D2C brand which are direct to consumers. These were the brands which were launched directly for the consumers. They can purchase it online directly, okay, initially. Okay, and then there were like food and beverages. Then there were also like no kids, so they don't want kids category. Um, they want someone who has handled into the women's furniture and all. And then also low to high margin products. So they want someone who has an experience working with low margin products. Now let's try to understand why it's important in their context. Okay, so so they're basically into digital books and some other products. Okay, and these are not very high margin products. Their the cost is very low. And when you run ad campaigns, so there's always a certain cost associated with the ad campaigns. Okay, so what happens is uh, the cost to acquire a customer in these cases where the margin is very, very low, right? So the cost has to be low too. If you're working for a product where the margin is very high, let's say, or maybe for Gucci or Armani kind of products, right? Where you sell a single apparel for 50,000 or maybe 1 lakh and so, right? So the margin is high. So the cost is not a concern. It's like if you generate one sales for 10,000 rupees also, you're still making profit. But now imagine if you're selling a garment for 3,000 and you're spending maybe 1,000 rupees on the ads, so it doesn't make economic sense to the company. So this is one thing that they highlighted, and they were very, very good at this. Okay, so I would appreciate them for sharing all these kind of information because this allows us to write the exact job requirements and also us for us to hire the right kind of candidates for them. Okay. And then they had this other detail, like saying that that person should have handled the Amazon ads. So Amazon also allows you to run some sponsored campaigns. So if you have seen that on the Amazon, like a lot of ads are coming up at the top, right? And they mentioned that they should be able to manage at least 8 to 10 lakhs of advertisement spend per month. Okay, and this is the ratio like Amazon to Flipkart. So they want to rely upon Amazon more than Flipkart because, of course, they have a digital product. So Amazon Kindle is there, and so many other things are there in their favor, right? So they told us all these details. Okay, and then they were mention of some of the specific tools, etc., etc. Okay. So they were clear about what they're looking for. Now the problem is we cannot highlight everything, right? Uh, no, I cannot just go and write this in the sorry, job description. Okay, so this is what I'm looking for because sometimes this is also like how do I put it? Disclosing the company's marketing strategy that okay, this company can spend 8 to 10 lakhs per month, or maybe they are already spending 8 to 10 lakhs per month as the spending on the ad spending on Amazon Flipkart. Now this is also like good information for the competitors, right? So you have to be very, very mindful about what you should highlight, what you should not. when you're framing these kind of job requirements and description. Okay. Any questions, by the way, as of now? Okay. So now I'll move forward. So now this is something. Okay, I think we have a question. Okay, no question. So now this is something that we received. I think they were the ones who provided the first thing. Yeah. And then we added or modified few things. Okay. So this was the one that came from the client, and we modified it a little bit. So it was e-commerce marketing manager with minimum 3 to 4 years of experience, though that's the job title that they gave us. Now, these are the things. So as an e-commerce manager, you'll be responsible for developing and implementing effective strategies to drive online sales, enhance customer experience, and optimize the performance of our e-commerce platforms. What do you think about this job specification? Do you think it's complete or incomplete, this part? I mean, there are a lot of other details, by the way, but I'm just talking about this part. But don't worry about the right and wrong answer, okay? So just keep sharing your thoughts. Let's have more of a discussion. Do you think it's complete or incomplete? I'll just project it once again. Okay. So this is the part. Since you have gone through all these details, so do you think this makes sense? Is it complete, or maybe they could have said more? What's your thought? Swati says complete. Anyone else? Complete, complete. So Smita says, I don't think so. In fact, I also don't think that. So, yeah, I think someone was trying to answer.
Yes, I don't think so because they have the e-commerce management require manager requirements. They
Mhm.
don't exactly match this. This looks like very generic. Like it has to
Yeah,
be specific in terms of where you're looking, like the names of
right,
e-commerce platforms.
right.
What strategy? Like if you're having a strategy like pay per click ads, then that has to be
Hmm.
clear in this. So
True,
I
true.
feel that has to be included.
Yeah, I think I also agree with you, Smita. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Any other thoughts? I mean, I just because I agreed, I mean, you don't, you can still answer, right? You can come up with some new ideas or something contradictory also. That's fine. Okay. Uh, See, I'll tell you. So I think what Smita has mentioned, it's actually correct. And if you remember, whatever I taught you today about the job specification part, right? So it should highlight different aspects of the job, more like a statement. So this statement, as Smita rightly mentioned, it's a very generic one. So if I read this, you'll be responsible for developing and implementing effective strategies. Now, in this case, I think even the person B, for that matter, is the right fit, right? Because she's doing that. She's the one who is managing the team. She's probably, developing and implementing the effective strategies. Only difference is she's doing with the help of a team, right? But otherwise, she's doing that already. And then also, if you think about this, to drive online sales. Now, this is a very generic statement again, because online sales can be generated from anywhere. It could be from Instagram, it could be, let's say, from their own website, it could be from the marketplaces that was mentioned earlier, right? So again, if they are focusing on hiring for these marketplaces like Amazon, Flipkart, so they should probably highlight this very clearly that these are the marketplaces for which we want to drive this thing. And of course, few other details could have helped, like having an expertise in running ad campaigns or PPC ads. Maybe some of these things can be highlighted, 3 to 4 years of experience, and so on. And someone who has worked with, let's say, low margin products also. I mean, you have to think about it. What could be the sorry make and break for you, okay, in that role. So that was first part. Now let's go to the roles and responsibilities. So now when it comes to this, so they have mentioned these points like under the roles and responsibilities: create and optimize detailed product listing, then branding activities, create and implement branding activities. Then we have develop and execute Amazon ad campaigns on Amazon and Flipkart platforms. Okay, so again, this was not a very correct statement. So we kind of modified it. Then working on driving sales through e-commerce platforms like ads, organic SEO. So again, this is a very generic thing. Let me tell you, it might not sound like a generic thing, but again, she has to write something which is very specific to Amazon and Flipkart, saying you want to do an SEO for Amazon and Flipkart. Because in general, if you talk about SEO, so it can be done for their website also. So if you want to attract the right talent, you have to be very, very specific and all these details. So I was a little disappointed with this kind of job description that came from her first point, because this was a kind of a, how do I put it, maybe gold mine of an information, right? And then this is not something which is in line with that. So probably she has just copied something, or maybe taken some references from the internet and trying to put all of them over here. Okay, right? So these are the some of the other things, and like location, what could be the work mode, working days was very important. So this is something which was highlighted by us in the actual job post also. Okay, and the reason being, these days a lot of people, they prefer 5 days a week. Now, trust me, the moment we put this, we almost had, let's say, less than 20% of the applications, that we were expecting. It was very difficult to close this position because, first of all, locating to Surat itself was a big task for a lot of people. Second, when they saw this thing 6 days a week, so that was another turn off for that, for most of the people, right? So along with all these details, so these are things that we thought, we should probably highlight, because we don't want to attract the wrong applications, and these two things are very critical. See, maybe, for metro or cosmopolitan city like Mumbai, Bangalore, these things would have not been so important, because people would have seen the growth, and they would have think, okay, if I have to stay in Bangalore, I would still go for 6 days a week, unless until the company is offering me a very good pay and so on. For some of them, it might uh, be important and they might not go for it. But some of them might think, okay, this is totally okay with me. But because this was a combination of so many things, like if you see, there was no work from home, there was no hybrid mode. So this is going to be all in office kind of job. So a lot of things have to be thought through when we thought about, what kind of information could be disclosed or not. Okay. So that's how it is. So, what I'll do is I will send this over on the email, okay, and I'll forward it to Avneet, right? And this particular example, and what I'll also do is I will give you maybe not now. What you can do is this: you can pick up this as an assignment, and based on the information and based on the existing JD, you can come up with your own new version of this particular JD, right? And only the first one, by the way. Okay, we have talked about the first one, the e-commerce manager, so you can focus on that. There are two JDs over there, so yeah. And what I'll do is for the second JD, I will send you a very good one, something which is, according to me, drafted according to the best practices. So basically, you have one assignment for the first JD, where you're looking at the second JD as a reference for a good JD for that matter. Okay? And meanwhile, you can even go to some of the examples on the Jobs for Her website also, right? There are lots of job descriptions and job posts over there, right? So you can go through them also. So yeah, that's about today's session. This is what I wanted to discuss and show. So let me know if you have any kind of questions, either related to the topic or anything in general. It could be related to career, it could be related to recruitment in general. No questions? Okay, so I normally, I don't know. Okay, there's another question. No, okay. So the way most of the trainers would take it is either you have understood everything or you've not understood anything. So I don't know which way I should take it. Okay, so finally there's a question. So what is the typical hiring cost for a job? Okay, that's a good question. See, I think it should vary between 1 to 2 months of the cost, for the positions which you are hiring. But sometimes, depending upon the position, it can go up to as much as, let's say, 6 months of cost for that matter. I'm talking about the direct hiring cost, by the way, and there's some indirect cost involved, like training and few other things for that. Yeah. So if you go by the standard in the industry, so normally most of the recruitment agencies would charge you for 1 month of salary as a hiring cost, and it can go up to 3 months or 6 months also, depending upon the leadership positions and some higher positions and all. Any other question?
Sir, I have a general question.
Sure.
Sir, in future, there's a possibility that recruiters will vanish through AI, or there will be strong growth in recruitment, because I am
What,
entering into recruitment.
mhm.
So is there
What,
growth in
what do
recruitment, or
what do you think? What's your thought first? I would like to share your thoughts in this.
Sir, I think definitely AI is overcoming everything, so it will impact recruitment
Mhm.
also in a great extent.
Okay. See, I'll tell you honestly, a lot of people are getting scared of the AI. Okay. And I know that, there are things happening in the industry because of multiple reasons. It's not just related to the, job requirement and the role of the AI in that particular job, right? It's also to do with what with the economy, economic conditions, the world conditions at the moment, and so many other things. Okay. But in general, I'll tell you, if you are a good recruiter, you should probably not be bothered by, this thing that AI will take up your job. In fact, what you should do is you should think about how can you make this process more efficient with the help of any kind of AI tool. Okay, and this is what you should start learning more. See, I mean, yes, there would be, let's say, out of 100 people, they're possibly taking the job of maybe 30, 40, 50 people, but there's still 50 people who are going to work in the same industry. It's not like the AI will do all the job for the recruiter. It's not going to happen. Okay. And especially if I'm talking about a country like India, because in India, the labor cost is still very low. Okay. For most of the other, countries, I would say, like, let's say UK or US and Canada and all, right? So the labor costs are very, very high. And that's also one of the primary reason that, a lot of companies are looking at, reducing the cost, when it comes to hiring, okay, more employees for that role. And then they assign or align AI to that, uh, only because the AI would cost them lesser. They still might need people to manage things, okay? But you'll be surprised to know that most of the tools, the AI tools, are very expensive. I'm not talking about the free tools in general, but because these will give you a very generic kind of outputs. Okay, but when you're doing something very specific, let's say for example, in my case, if I run a paid campaign on Amazon, okay, and there's a tool called as Helium, so I would still be dependent on the tool, but at the same time, I would apply my thoughts. The tool will not do the job for me. Okay, I'll have to apply the insights. I'll have to take the output from the tool and then apply my thought process on the top of that. So I would say don't be scared and just see, like, how can you upgrade yourself. Uh, you know, Having a knowledge of few AI tools can definitely be very helpful. And if it's very specific to your role, so yeah, it's always better. So if you're thinking of entering into this industry, I would say this is not the bad time. You should move ahead.
Okay.
Sir, one more question from my end.
Hmm.
Now that we just had discussed about a job role that you have shown us in a word. So,
Hmm.
what is the probability that, in a job description, a candidate might not have 100% of what the job requirement,
Hmm.
as per the job requirement? So, on what basis would the HR would shortlist if the person is not having 100% of what the job requirement is? It is
Hmm.
not possible every time to get all the resumes
Right, right.
exactly matching to the the required job profile
Yeah.
as per.
So there are two ways of handling it probably. So one is, of course, as you mentioned about the AI. So probably you can take up some tools, and okay, so you can make use of that tool to kind of scan these profiles of the candidates and figure out, like, how much of that is a match with your current job requirements, right? And of course, the tool might not be 100% accurate, or it might not still give you the 100% information that you need. Second could be like there could be some pre-screening questions. Maybe you take a short interview, like maybe asking 5, 10 questions, important questions. Like for example, if you go back to that particular JD where I mentioned that I need to know whether the candidate has managed 8 to 10 lakhs as a budget for Amazon or Flipkart or not, right? And I don't want to put that in the JD. Okay, so there's a probability that candidates who have spent, let's say, less than 8 lakhs would have applied to. So I can probably have these 3, 4 questions, screening questions ready. Either I send it to them through the link, like Google form and all, or maybe I can directly call and ask these questions, and they will probably tell you, okay, no, I have only managed, let's say. So you don't have to say, have you managed 8 lakhs or 10 lakhs? So maybe people would say, oh yes, I have managed it, okay, for the sake of job. But you can simply ask, like, what is the maximum budget that you have managed for this? So probably they will say, yeah, I've managed 3 to 4 lakhs, right? So now you know that, okay, whether this candidate is the right or maybe someone else. Okay. So yeah, I mean, so these are the things that you can do to reduce your burden of going through each and every resume. And in good old days, a lot of recruiters would do like a 1 minute or 2 minute kind of quick scanning, do some control F to find out some important keywords, some important things, and maybe just skim through the resume and find out if this is the right resume or not. But I think now with the help of tools, the process is much easier.
Okay, so thank you.
Any other questions? All right, so I think that will be it from my end. If Avneet has some information to share, so she can do that.
That's
And
all, Vivek. Thank you so much from our side also. And yes, just a gentle reminder for tomorrow's session, ladies. So that's it. We will be sharing the links for you to join the session and just be available on time. Thank you so much.
right. And
Vivek
yeah,
has
I've
also
shared my
shared,
yeah,
yeah,
I've sorry, yeah, please go ahead.
yes.
Right.
LinkedIn profile of Vivek has been shared in the chat box. I will be sharing the same in your WhatsApp group as well. So please get connected, and I'm sure Vivek will be happy to help if there are any queries.
Yeah, sure, sure. I mean, I'll try my best to answer as soon as possible, but you will have to be a little patient. Sometimes I might not be able to respond, but yeah, you can see clearly that there are a few inbox messages already. Right. So, all right. So, wish you all
Okay,
the best.
Vivek, thank you very
Yeah,
much. And
yeah. Thanks,
thank you
everyone.
for the insights you have shared. I'm sure that would have been of a great help to each one of them. Yes, the
Right.
session was very enlightening. So those are the comments for you, Vivek. And we'll look
Thank you.
forward
Thanks.
to, many more trainings like this. Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
ladies.
Thanks,
We'll
thanks,
take your
everyone.
leave here and have a lovely evening ahead, everyone.